The White Lotus Season 2 Episode 4 Ending Explained. Episode 4 of the show has recently been released, and I think it was most definitely the best episode of the season so far. Following on from the events that occurred on the third night of the trip in Sicily, with Cameron cheating on Daphne and Ethan kissing Mia, we saw suspicious Harper cottoning onto the idea that something happened and now looking for answers. Alongside this, we saw many of the other main arcs in the show starting to turn up the heat too. With Portia meeting Jack and Albie meeting Lucia, the toxicity between them reached an all-time high. So with that, I thought I'd recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this episode of the show. So let's get into it. Here is White Lotus Season 2 Episode 4 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Episode 4 of the show was partially focused on the aftermath of the night before, but it also looked at new relationships forming and blossoming, with an ounce of self-reflection also being present within. We had the usual incorporation of the head that we were first introduced to in the first episode of the season, where it incorporated the dark, haunting story of the repercussions of having an affair, along with the constant presence of the ocean, starting the entire episode with it and also providing glimpses of it all throughout the episode, showing that it's still there and will be the setting that causes a lot of damage and will most likely claim the life of one of the characters that we've been introduced to. In this episode, there was a new feature of symbolism, and that was the seagull. The seagull is symbolic of greediness, gluttony, and gossip, all three traits that we're seeing present within many of the characters in the entirety of the show, so it's no surprise that it's made an inclusion partway through the season. I'm going to break this video down by the main character arcs from episode 4 of the show, Harper. In episode 4 of the show, we saw Harper return back to the hotel, and based off of her night with Daphne, the seed of doubt was most certainly planted within her mind. However, even without that doubt being present, we saw that she found some evidence of intimate activity occurring in her hotel room from the previous night, which Ethan wasn't mentioning when she questioned him about his evening. In this moment, we saw Ethan move away from the awkward tension and mentioned the reasoning behind why Cameron brought them on this trip. It was so that he'd be able to do business with him in the future and make some money. And at this time, we also heard Harper mention about how Daphne and Cameron's relationship was a front, and that they both cheat on each other. So the two things that they previously wanted to prove and find out about earlier on in this season no longer mattered, because their own relationship and the lack of trust was now something that was clearly the issue. And the realization that they needed to look inwards instead of outwards for issues was now present. They've just been saying they were okay, because they couldn't bring themselves to admit that maybe they're not in a good place at the moment. We saw that it was something that was constantly getting to Harper as the episode went on, almost taking over her mind, so much so that she had to excuse herself during the day and was putting on a face at dinner. All of this would be able to be solved if she just spoke to Ethan and he'd be able to say that it wasn't his. However, it doesn't seem as though that's going to be the case, judging by the episode 5 trailer. Harper and Ethan definitely have their issues, but they haven't been able to address them at all. And now this, something that should most definitely be raised, is something that's going to be pushed to the side, eaten away, and manifest into a situation far larger than it actually needs to be. I think the first shot that we saw in the season is going to be linked to the four of them in some way. One of them won't end up returning home after the trip, Albie. I can't help but feel bad for Albie. At first, I questioned his motives and what his intentions were, but I do feel like he's genuinely a nice person and the most real person that's on the trip. Out of himself and Portia, Portia seems to be the one that's the problem. Albie's trying his hardest to be there for Portia and give her the time of day because he genuinely cares for her, but by the way that she's treated him, by essentially ditching him to be with somebody who was more out there, in terms of personality. And to quote last week's episode where she stated, got her heart racing a bit more, she in turn treated Albie awfully, showing her true colours, rather than just being upfront and honest with him. Yes, Albie did in turn replicate what Portia did by trying to make her jealous, but she did just abandon him without notice. I liked the fact that we saw Albie's story now starting to connect to his father's in the sense that he was now spending the night with Lucia. This is only going to cause more problems for the family. The family that Dominic said he felt Albie was the only person who would be able to save it due to Albie's opinion being valued by his mother. The final shot at the end of the person tied up with arrows within them was a haunting painting, and it does make me wonder if Albie is going to end up harmed. We heard a few episodes back, in Sicily, women are more dangerous than weapons, and this leads me to believe that Lucia being connected to the entirety of the family is definitely going to cause problems. Portia. Portia meeting Jack is exactly what she was looking for, but she didn't know it. We heard her mention early on in the season how she never falls for the nice guys, and this is exactly what she's done again. She didn't treat Albie kindly, and when what she viewed as a better opportunity came along, she took it and ran with it, disregarding the feelings of a person who genuinely cared for her, rather than just wanted to spend the night with her. Portia and Albie are done for the time being, but I feel they'll both have turbulent times with their new companions and eventually come back together. That's just something I feel is on the horizon. Lucia. Lucia's arc is starting to become an interesting one. She's starting to reflect on who she is and feeling shameful for what she's doing. Every night, she spent the night with somebody different, and the connection that she struck up with Albie is something that I like to think is genuine. We even saw her in shock at the idea that her ways had been rubbing off on Mia, and that she was going to spend time with Giuseppe in order to better her career. I feel she's going to form a bond with Albie, one that's real, but a history with his father is going to come back and damage it. Valentina. It's clear to see that Valentina has feelings for Isabella, and we're now starting to see her express them. This was by the purchasing of the brooch. Valentina's treatment towards men is based on her own experience in them only wanting one thing, and we saw this in the way that she spoke to Dominic, essentially disregarding him looking for a recommendation on a shop, and also the way that she asked if Isabella wanted help from Rocco, in case he made her feel uncomfortable, despite the fact that they're just friends. We're learning more about Valentina as the episodes go on, but I feel her arc is more about her feeling as though she can express who she truly wants to be, rather than keeping it suppressed. Tanya. Tanya encountered Quentin, who was a man who befriended her and actually gave her the time of day and made her feel human. As we know, Tanya is an individual who can't really function on her own. She either needs Portia around her or her husband Greg. These new people brought something out in her, and it was quite refreshing to see. I'm yet to understand their intentions, but it does feel as though they're genuine in the way that they're treating her. But I feel this is something we'll just see develop as the episodes go on. I thought episode 4 was the best one in the season so far. We saw relationships crash, burn, suspicions get raised, and lust start to blossom. Everything that this season of the show has embodied. With us only being 4 episodes in, it feels like so much has already happened. But with there only being 3 episodes left, I can't wait to see how it's going to conclude and the damage that's going to be made. It's definitely not going to end well. So, there you have it. White Lotus Season 2 Episode 4 Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos such as Endings Explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @BrainPilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.